Hey guys, Nick Alt, the Ozark Angler here. Just wanted to say, if you watched the last two videos, not a lot of action. I know they're very boring, but that's part of what this channel is about. This is a learning channel, not just for advanced anglers or new anglers, but for myself. You guys from the beginning, you're watching and learning through my trial and errors, and I'm trying to share what I learn with you guys. So what you're seeing is the evolution of my fishing skills also. I struggle in the wintertime. It is very hard for me to get a bite, and this year is extremely unusual because normally this time of year I'd be fishing really deep in those winter holes and deeper water, but the water just never got that cold, so those fish really haven't moved that deep. They actually have moved shallow, which it's kind of frustrating because I didn't really commit to fishing shallow long enough to know if there was a good bite this past weekend. And apparently, after talking through all my resources and all the people that I know through the channel and through Facebook and meeting at tournaments, I've discovered that a lot of these fish are a little bit ahead of where I think they would be. So what I've been doing is thinking about what I think they should be doing and not listening to the fish and what they're actually doing. So that's something to pay attention to, is just because you think this is what the fish should be doing doesn't mean that's what they're going to be doing. And by doing that, I realized after talking to a bunch of people I've been making a mistake. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but let me set this up here. I've got a wide variety of lures here. Now, the last video that you saw was day 2 of last week. It was Sunday. And you notice I missed 2 fish and Dane missed 1. Well, the problem was we were fishing with very light line. He might have had a little bit heavier than me, but I was fishing 10-pound braid to a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader. And I was having issues with connecting on the fish because I was setting the hook and you could hear the drag going out. And what I found out, and I knew it from the start, but I didn't have any, what I usually do when I throw a chomper is I throw it on a chomper head, which this here is a chomper head. You got the wire, you got the exposed hook. It does not take much effort at all to actually drive that hook into the fish. What I was doing, since I ran out of chomper heads, I broke them all off. I went through I think 10 of them on Saturday and Sunday. So what I did was I had a little shaky head. This isn't the exact one that I had tied on, but this is a good representation of what was going on. So I've got this shaky head. Here is the hook. I've got it fed through. Well, the problem is when you get bit and you try to set the hook without a lot of force, mind you, I'm throwing 10-pound test on a spin. When you set that hook, you have to push this plastic down, and when you push it down, that is all you're getting right there, that little point. And when you set the hook with 10-pound test, you're not going to get through that. You're not going to push that plastic enough out of the way so you can get a good solid hook set on that fish. And that can be a problem because if you can't get the hook in its mouth, you're not going to catch the fish. So that was one thing I noticed. That's what happened with those 2 missed fish. I was just out of chomper heads with exposed hooks, and I wasn't going to just throw a bare hook. I mean, I was trying to find brush and stuff like that. But so that was what was going on, why I was missing those fish. It just wasn't enough hook set power for such a little gap trying to push the plastic out of the way. So that's why I missed those 2. It's kind of a bummer, but I went ahead, got some more chomper heads. We're all set, ready to rock and roll. Now the next thing that I was doing wrong was I was throwing too full of a jig. I tried cutting down a little bit, a couple strands. I pulled a bunch of strands off of one of my jigs, because I was throwing that. Something similar to that, not this exact jig, but something similar. A lot of strands on it, and I just wasn't getting bit. And I got to the point where I was slowly pull 3 or 4 off, fish it for a while, pull 3 or 4 more off, and then I started talking to somebody, and what they told me is if you throw a jig in the cold water there's two things you need to make sure. One, you need to make sure it's very dense, very compact, stands up like that. Cut the skirt really short. It's not always, but a lot of times that's what you have to do. You want to make a very compact looking bait. So I made a couple. Very compact. The trailer might be a little too big, but that's something I can always change. But as far as the jig, I got it to where it flares out. The other thing I was taught by Ed Bryant up at Bryant Osage Outdoors when I was in there explaining what was going on, and between Ed and Jamie, they told me that try to find a jig with living rubber. This jig is made out of living rubber. He says what happens is it has more action in the water. It stands out a little bit, and it allows for the potential to make it look more full, and they move around a little bit better in the cold water than just the silicone. Because the silicone, if you look, it just lays flat right here. You know, it moves around a little bit, but it lays flat. Where with the living rubber, it stands out. So when it gets in the water, they just kind of move with the current. And that makes a big difference. And just looking at it and thinking about it, I feel like that was possibly where I was going wrong when I was throwing the jig or the creature bait. I was just, first off, chomper this time of year. You can't go wrong. A lot of people throw it small, compact, looks like a jig. It's a good bait, and there's various different sizes from, I think they have a 2.5 now, all the way up to 4-inch chomper. I try to throw like right in the middle, around the 3.5 inch. That's a good size bait. So, but then when you need to go really, really small, you throw something like this. It's a 1/4 ounce head with a little tiny hook, and this is what you do with it. You take like a small, I had a bunch of full-size craws. Well, I took the back end off of it. Then you feed it through. And now, look at how compact that little bait is. I mean, that right there, this time of year, got good little wire, exposed hook. That can catch some fish. 'Cause these fish right now, they're very lethargic. They don't want to really eat. You know, you have 2 bites right now. You have the reaction bite. That's your A-rig, your jerk bait, your slow swim bait, and you know your flat-sided crankbaits. That's what happens when the water is below 50 degrees. You have those fish that are aggressive, and they'll chase it and they'll eat it. But in the video, as you saw, the fish followed that swim bait all the way up. But either it was moving too fast and he wasn't really wanting to commit to it, or he was just trying to test it and see what was there before it committed to eating that bait, and it never did. So with that, either you throw a small compact bait moving a little bit slower every now and then, maybe moving it, but pausing it, letting it soak for a little while can make a big difference. I didn't do any really long soaking, and I feel like that might have been the issue as far as the jig bite, because that fish is going to nose right up to it, and he's got time to look at it, study it, think about it, and then you leave it there, then you move it 6 inches, and then he'll move up with it, and every now and then, when you go to move it, it might just trigger that reaction bite. So I think that's where I went wrong last weekend, and I think that's what I'm going to work on this coming weekend. I'm going to get out there, try a little bit different technique, try a little bit different baits, try something that I normally don't do, because you guys are watching this channel, you're learning, I'm learning, and you're going to watch the development of my skills, and hopefully I'm improving your skills too as an angler. But with that, you guys have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time on the water.